You're listening to Sustainable Colgate, an ongoing dialogue connecting the Colgate community, upstate New York residents, and the local ecosystem through current environmental issues.
By connecting with fellow students, professors, and members of Madison County, we hope to raise awareness and promote a more sustainable community. We're your hosts, Anne-Marie Heinrich and Laura Wood. Dominic Frongillo made history in 2005 when at age 22, he was elected to Caroline's Town Council. Now in 27, he serves as the youngest deputy town supervisor in Tompkins County. Among many accomplishments, Dominic leads Energy Independent Caroline, a team dedicated to local energy independence. A graduate from Cornell University's College of Human Ecology, Dominic earned an independent degree with honors in sustainable community development. Dominic is active in the growing international youth climate movement and served as a U.S. youth delegate to the UN climate negotiations in 2009 in Copenhagen and in 2007 in Bali. As a member of the international youth delegation, Dominic helped advocate for bold and comprehensive action to start the transition to a clean energy economy. On this podcast, Dominic speaks of his experiences and the burden of climate change that has been placed on our generation and those younger than us. We hope this podcast inspires you to use your passion and creativity to help make the change we so desperately need.
You're the youngest elected official in your town, Caroline. How did you decide to go about running for an office position, and what have you done since you were elected?
Well, when I was in college, really sought to learn a lot about why the world is the way that it is, and not just the physical world, but also the social world. And so I traveled around the state learning from farm workers about their working conditions and the injustices they face. Knocked on doors in Brooklyn and in Queens to lower class sizes in New York City schools, and lived in Costa Rica for a summer on a farm, learning about how international trade and international agriculture works and how to do community empowerment. And so when I graduated school, I thought that I would join the Peace Corps, and I actually met with the recruiter, was all set to go. And it was one fateful meeting at a meeting in Caroline, my town, where I was an intern for the planning board, where the deputy town supervisor, Ed Cope at the time, who had built an off-the-grid home, actually cornered me and said, "Hey, Dominic, you can't leave. Your community needs you. Would you consider running for town council?" And like most respectable young people, I said, "Absolutely not. Why would I ever want to do that? That's something adults do." And then I realized that I actually did have an opportunity and a responsibility to serve my hometown that had given me so much, and so that I could actually create the change that I wanted to see in the world, starting right in my community and being part of a community, which was really great.
And how did you get involved with sort of going to Copenhagen and Cancun and all of these international?
Yeah, so from a very young age, my parents taught me the importance of stewardship, and we would walk up and down the road picking up trash along the side of the road and always carry a trash bag and bring it back. And I remember getting so frustrated and angry that why are people throwing all this trash out? Why didn't they care more about taking care of our land and our water? And my mom would point out erosion on the banks, and so I think that ethic of the importance of stewarding our place kind of carried forward. So in 2007, when like many people watched An Inconvenient Truth and started really diving into the science and learning more about it, I realized that this was no longer something that was going to affect just my grandchildren or my children. It was going to affect me, and that I couldn't tell my grandchildren that I didn't do everything in my power to try to turn it around. So when I learned that the world was negotiating what would come after the Kyoto Protocol, which regulated greenhouse gases internationally, I knew that I just had to go, that was going to kick off that process. So I applied and went as part of a group of 25 young people from around the U.S. to go. And we met young people from all around the world there that cared just as much about environmental stewardship and social justice and building a safe, just, fair society. And so inspiring, and across language, across culture, across religion. We taught each other songs and dances, including the "Ooh, it's getting hot in here" dance. There's too much carbon in the atmosphere, and it was just really incredible to feel that solidarity and that we're not alone. And in fact, there are people all around the world just like us that care about and making a difference. And I actually just learned that there are other young elected officials around the world, too, that also care about climate change and sustainability, and that we're starting to find each other, too, and connect, and realizing that we have much more power as young people, and sort of working to get other young people to run for office, too.
Cool. So how have you used those experiences to implement change in Caroline and make it a model for other communities and encourage other officials to sort of do the same types of things?
Yeah, great. So when I came back from the Bali climate negotiations, I wrote an email back to many of my fellow elected officials and constituents in my community saying, we are the leaders that we seek. This is going way too slow to address the pace of climate change, which is accelerating so quickly. We have to take action. The international process is just taking too long. And moreover, the U.S. is the principal bloc for progress. It's the most powerful nation in the world, and it's the 10 largest corporations in the history of the planet are, of the 10, 7 are energy companies, and the 8th is GE. And so they pump millions and millions of dollars into our government. So, and that's the reason why it's shaping policy. So we had to take action. So I came back and we thought of, well, what is the biggest thing that we could do? What is something that would be almost impossible to do? And we thought, well, what if we engage people and educate them and get them involved and actually taking steps in their personal lives towards energy independence? And so we thought of the concept of one small step. And so we thought, what if we delivered one energy-saving light bulb to every single house in the town? Many people had never even heard of these compact fluorescents before, even though they use a quarter of the energy. So we organized, we got a small grant, and we leveraged the power of students. I actually asked some students that I knew, hey, can you help me do this thing? And then pretty soon we got it funded, and we're like, oh no, we actually have to do this. And so we organized and started meeting. Groups of 2 turned into a group of 5, turned into a group of 10, and pretty soon we got 100 volunteers to go door to door in a single day in 3 hours across 55 square miles, delivering one light bulb and energy-saving information to every single house in our town. And it was really inspiring. Some of the people that actually helped deliver, some of the community members that helped deliver the bulbs that day, one of them's a realtor, talks with hundreds of people throughout the course of a month, and she said, wow, these were so cool, I actually went and I bought enough light bulbs to replace half the ones in my house. So the impact was actually greater than we thought it was, and we calculated that if every home used the light bulb that we gave them, we would save our community $70,000 for the cost of the life of the bulbs. And then we decided that was a good model. And so when I was brought on Cornell Cooperative Extension of Tompkins County to do home energy efficiency work to actually get people to take the next steps, we decided the best way to do it was not just lighten up Caroline, which we called it, but lighten up Tompkins, which was our whole county. So over the last 2 years, we have gotten efforts to deliver 17,000 CFLs, 1 to 17,000 homes, which all of these efforts collectively have saved our community over $920,000 in energy savings. We're showing that energy efficiency is an economic driver, that it can actually help us pull out of this recession, create jobs that can never be outsourced because the work has to be done locally, good jobs for the people in historically marginalized communities. Let's build our cities and towns back up again, creating the future that we want to see with local food, clean energy, and so that's what we're doing. And now we've actually had other communities in Binghamton replicating this model, and Corning wants to now do Lighten Up Corning as well. And I just heard that in North Carolina they want to do a Lighten Up city in North Carolina. They want to do a similar Lighten Up effort. So people get inspired when you have a vision out there, and it really spreads virally. Pretty cool.
And then you kind of touched on this in the last question a little bit, but
You talked to a bunch of youth delegates and are trying to make change within the youth. Why do you think it's so important to get our generation and the younger generation involved in such a big issue like climate change?
Well, two reasons. The first is that this is our future. That the people that are making the decisions right now, that are condemning millions of people towards suffering and relocation as refugees and countless species to extinction, will not have to see the worst consequences. They don't have to pay the costs of a changing climate. But we do, as young people, that this is our future. And we have a moral authority to not just speak for ourselves, but to speak for every generation that comes after us. And our generation is more powerful than any other in the course of history. Half the people in the world are under 25. We are the global generation that will solve the climate crisis or live through it. And so that's the moral authority. And the second is that we have the ability to connect and inspire with people that's unique. That in fact, the younger you are, many times, the easier it is for you to inspire people. There was one girl in Bali who spoke and read a poem. She was 8 years old, and she got on the podium at the end of the whole conference in front of all the delegates, and she read the poem that said, "There are many cameras here flashing in the eye, but little do people know that I'm just a little girl that is afraid her world will die." And I saw the delegates crying, many of them from Germany and from South Africa, as we realized what was at stake. And I think that as young people and as college students, post-college, that we have the energy and the passion and the drive and the creativity to make change happening. And moreover, we drive every social movement. 350.org, the international climate movement, is driven by young people. The Arab Spring was driven by young people. The Occupy movement is driven by young people. The Civil Rights movement was driven by people who were between 20 and 26 years old. And we as young people have the opportunity to change the course of history through just being here and connecting with each other and connecting with allies and working together. And I think that's the power that we bring.
Yeah. And given that climate change is such a pressing issue and also a moral one, how do you encourage current generations to get involved and sort of use that drive that you have as sort of a younger person in this country to kind of encourage older generations who are having a huge impact but maybe are sort of less familiar with climate issues? You know, how do they get involved?
Talk with your parents. It's the easiest way. We really do have to think creatively about how we're going to turn this around, and we need everybody. We're going to need people that we don't normally think of allies on this issue. In Caroline, we need to, for example, as we're dealing with the issue of hydraulic fracturing, in order to make sure that we ensure a clean energy future, we need to make sure that we're ensuring a livelihood for the farmers who are hurting right now, who are considering selling their cows. One person said that he has to sell his cows because he can't make ends meet anymore. That's not the kind of future we want. We want a future that includes everybody, where there's a place for everybody. And so we have to think creatively about how we can build a prosperous and thriving future for all people.
Awesome. Well, I hope people are inspired by this podcast, and we want to thank you for talking with us. It's been really interesting.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to Sustainable Colgate. To learn more about what's happening in sustainability on campus, check out the sustainability website under the About Colgate section on the university's webpage, or follow Colgate Sustainability on Facebook or Twitter.